On the axes below, plot y equals 1 over x, y equals 4 over x plus 2, and y equals negative 1 over x minus 4 plus 3. We then want to look at the asymptotes of y equals 4 over x plus 2, and the asymptotes of y equals negative 1 over x minus 4, add 3. Now I'm actually going to generate all this on the calculator, and then we'll have a good look at those asymptotes. So if we put 1 over x and 4 over x plus 2 and negative 1 over x minus 4, add 3 into the calculator, and then just select the middle one and generate the table, then we can go through and pick the values off. So x is negative 10, y is negative 0.5, and so on, and we can generate the table, and we've seen this before, so there's no point in me doing that in its entirety. And then when we want this one, we'll just generate the table for that one. So it starts with 3.07 here and carries on along there. And of course we can generate the graph. So if we reselect the top, and we can generate them all at the same time, and then we can see the blue one on here is the 1 over x, the red one is the 4 over x plus 2, and the green is the negative 1 over x minus 4, add 3. Now I have the three graphs plotted together here. So the blue is the original 1 over x, the red is the 4 over x plus 2, and the pink one is the negative 1 over x minus 4 plus 3. We can see for the red one and the pink one, the vertical asymptote is drawn in. Now what I'm going to do is look at them each individually, because it's going to make what's happened to the asymptotes clearer than with them all on the same graph. So this one is y is 1 over x, and we've looked at this one before. We know that the vertical asymptote is the y-axis and the x-axis is the horizontal asymptote. And what that means, we've discussed this before, is the curve along here will get closer and closer and closer to the x-axis but never reaches it. If you think about it, 1 over 1,000 is still a positive number, and so is 1 over 1,000,000, and so on. It gets closer and closer but never arrives at the axis. Same sort of thing is true here. As we go up, this will get closer and closer to the y-axis but never reaches it. And that's why the x-axis is a horizontal asymptote, because it's horizontal, and the y-axis is a vertical asymptote. And in this case, with 1 over x, the asymptotes meet at the origin 0, 0. Now this point where the asymptotes meet and the asymptotes themselves are key features of this type of graph, known as a reciprocal graph. Another point that's key is what happens if we go 1 unit to the right from the point where the asymptotes meet. In this case, we go 1 unit up, and note how there's a 1 over x, and that's this one here. So similar to the sort of analysis we did with quadratics, we can do this analysis with this type of graph. Now this one here is y is 4 over x plus 2. Note how the vertical asymptote is now x is negative 2. The horizontal asymptote is still the x-axis. The point where the asymptotes meet is -2, 0. If I go 1 unit right from there, notice how I go 4 units up to meet the curve again. So the 4 is this 4, and it's the +2 here, which is added to the x, which has moved this asymptote 2 units to the left. So, one asymptote has stayed put, stayed exactly as it was. One has moved 2 units to the left, which moves this point where they meet. And clearly, there's a stretch parallel to the y-axis known as a dilation. We'll talk a lot more about graph transformations later. And the scale factor of that is 4, because this is a 4, but on the standard 1/x, this was 1. Notice also, with respect to those asymptotes, that the curve is here, top right, and here, bottom left. Finally, here we have the graph of y is equal to -1/x minus 4 plus 3. Now the negative can be whether I put it there, or it could be up here. You'll note that the vertical asymptote has been put in. The horizontal asymptote for this one is the line y equals 3. So the asymptotes cross here at 4, 3. It's the 4, the -4 under here, which has moved the vertical asymptote 4 units to the right. The 3 added at the end has moved the horizontal asymptote up by 3 units. So we have x equals 4 as our vertical asymptote and y equals 3 as our horizontal asymptote. Now note, if we go to this point and do our usual thing of going 1 unit to the right, we go 1 unit down, -1, and that's the -1 on top here.